what problems are we going to be facing on our shoot? Given that it's ridiculous timescales, we've only just got a script and we are going to have to go through redrafts. What are going to be some of the problems that we face?
Well, that's 3 of them for a start. Oh God, I don't know. I was thinking about this outside, and I think we could face much bigger problems if we don't do all the groundwork that we can do before. Just like anything, all of the groundwork that we can do up front, I think we should do. A really good solid rec is going to be needed this week, and a good shot list and everything like that. Otherwise, I think our main thing is going to be time, obviously. I wonder if there'll be issues with noise and stuff. What with the festival going on around, I don't know about that. But luckily, I'm not a sound man. That's not my problem.
Right.
I would hopefully we don't anticipate any problems out of the ordinary.
Now, of course, we've got an editor, Simon Regler, who's coming off Merlin. He's going to come straight into the cutting room after he finished his day at the BBC cutting Merlin.
Very cool.
We're going to be cutting as we go.
Yeah.
How do you think that's going to impact on the process?
I think it's really exciting. I mean, I know that certainly from DOPs, my dad, for example, who have had to wait often for the next day or maybe even 2 days if you're abroad to see the stuff that they shot, and sit there having sleepless nights wondering whether it's overexposed or whether there's a light leak in the can or something like that. One of the things of this is that we, certainly for the first day, we can look at what we've achieved and think, is it working? Should we carry on this route, or should we just go in and fix this, or should we take a slightly different approach? I'm really interested to see it happening, because editing's something that editors baffle me. It's such a difficult job to be really good at, and I really admire it. So I think I'm going to go in as a student, definitely, and sit in the background and ask all the questions.
Just after we wrap the show, I mean, we're in such a crazy schedule. Simon, the editor, and myself are zapping over to Pinewood Studios to meet up with Eddie Hamilton, who's going to take a break from cutting X-Men to sit down and create a bespoke post-production workflow for us. So
fantastic.
We're very fortunate.
Fantastic.
What other cool stuff are we going to be getting for the film? I know we've spoken about lenses. Why is it important to get what kind of camera lenses are we going to have? Well,
I'm hoping that we'll be able to get the new Zeiss compact primes, which are effectively a shrunken version of the ultra primes, which you would use on your 35mm jobs and stuff like that, if you're shooting top quality stuff.
But why do we need to bother? Because doesn't it come with a great Canon lens? I mean,
well, no, this is where they can start to get expensive. This is where the sort of false economy comes in, is that you can, yes, have a nice standard prime for a few £100 or something for a Canon, or you could have a nice zoom. On mine I've got a 70-200, one of their L series lenses, which produces beautiful footage, but it's geared up like a stills lens. And a lot of the problem with the electronic lenses nowadays is that the focus will just rotate and rotate and rotate. And if you've got a focus puller who wants to strap their follow focus onto the side, they need hard stops for the lens infinity and close focus, and these lenses will just keep spinning. So immediately your calibration goes way out.
Right.
So you had to put these adapter rings on before, and it works, but it's a get around, and it made your workflow very, very slow. Whereas now Zeiss have gone out and they've made these sort of T lenses as opposed to F lenses, for stills and so on. You've got an aperture that doesn't click into set positions. It rolls smoothly as a film lens will, and you've got a sort of throw that goes sort of 280 degrees all the way around, so that you can get a very accurate focus. Whereas the stills lenses only had a small throw between close and infinity, so it made your focus puller's job even harder. Plus the fact that your film plane is essentially big on a 5D, you had even shallower depth of field. And very, very tough for a focus puller in low light conditions.
Now, the 5D does create very, very unique-looking images. I mean, people say, oh, it looks like film, and it is very beautiful in a way that film is, but I think it has its own look.
Yeah.
Now, given the story that we've chosen for the winner of the competition it is a film that deals with the afterlife in part. How is that a theory? How are we going to, try and use that shallow depth of field? What kind of, what are the advantages of the 5D going to be when we come to telling that story, do you think?
I think the softness of the 5D, as opposed to some of the other things, and I think the 7D, personally, I think looks a little bit harder and stuff. It looks a little bit more video in some ways. But we did some tests, actually, side by side, with a 1D Mark IV and a 5D when we were down at Pinewood, doing a job entirely on those, actually. And ran them side by side, and very similar images, but it did have a sort of a softness which people keep saying that's a Canon thing, particularly. I don't know why that is, but it has a softness that I've seen used quite nicely to create a slightly ethereal effect. And I can, with the script, I can see it being useful for perhaps half of it. You could create a difference between the afterlife.
So we might even shoot 5D and 7D to create two...
We could do, or maybe we could play with some of the...
See, we're in development. We're actually making choices right now.
Well, I saw one thing where one of the big DPs did a test on them, and for scenes that were supposed to reflect flashbacks in his life, he used a different shutter speed and then forced it back to 25 frames. Frame rate, and forced it back to 25 using software. And he said for him it created a very slightly ethereal look, and it was something I was thinking about. I mean, I haven't tested it yet, so it's another thing that we that we could test over the next week, and we could mess up very badly with. But it's supposed to work quite well. So I think things like that, playing with frame rates and stuff, that works in our favour, definitely.
What common mistakes do you see when people come to you and they've not shot 5D and they say, shoot 5D for me, or you see other DPs, picking up that camera for the very first time? What are the common mistakes you think
I think
happen?
What I've seen a lot of is people trying to use it like a stills camera. Lots of stills photographers who have a good eye for image construction and stuff like that, have tried to use it like a stills camera. And I've seen, I'm not into the technical elements of this, get very complicated, and Philip Bloom and people will be able to explain more of this. But I saw a lot of people getting very bad jelly wobble with movements, and I didn't.
And that's with the rolling shutter.
The rolling shutter issues, which can be massively exaggerated using the incorrect combination of shutter speed and frame rate. So a lot of people coming in and saying, well, I'm used to taking a shot at 2/50th of a second at 5.6, so I'm going to shoot this clip just like that. I find it works better if you treat it as a film camera and fix your frames per second, 25, fix your shutter speed to 50th or double the 25 frame thing, and it seems to effectively treat it like you would do a film camera. So your only things you can adjust are your ISO and your or your ASA and your aperture,
right,
and fix the rest of it down, and then you will have something that behaves like a film camera.
Right. Okay.